Talking Journeys of Belonging to Blackness with your host, India Lorick Wilmot.
Who lived in Brooklyn?
Season 5. Good people, it's December, and not only are we in the throes of the holiday season, but this month commemorates computer literacy and computer science education. Our guest today is Terysa Ridgeway, a computer scientist, previously a rocket scientist who developed code for exo-atmospheric spacecraft, and is currently a software engineering program manager at Google. Terysa is also author and creator of the children's book series Terysa Solves It. A leader in a number of healthcare, aerospace, and aeronautic initiatives, Terysa intentionally brings her expertise and ability to solve complex issues to help support and empower children and youth, particularly those in rural communities. A STEM advocate, mentor, and humanitarian, Terysa has been featured in Forbes magazine, Vibe, and Self magazine, and has received many recognitions for her works, including being appointed as a U.S. Goodwill Ambassador by President Jammeh of the Republic of Gambia, honors from state governors and senators. She even received the keys to 3 cities in her home state of Louisiana, and an annual proclamation on every March 24th to honor her accomplishments and civic contributions from her hometown of Sunset. Most recently, she is wrapping up her Stanford University's lead executive education program and launching coding robot for kids called Alilo the Explorer. Folks, we're talking all the things as it relates to representation in STEM education, pursuing your dreams, and thinking outside the box. Let's welcome Terysa Ridgeway. We're looking forward to learning more about your journey of belonging to Blackness. So, Terysa, are you ready?
I am ready.
All right, let's get into it.
Right about now.
Act 1, Call to Adventure.
This is the breakdown.
You grew up in Sunset, Louisiana with your parents who were both teachers. Your mom gave you your first computer and your dad was a coach. And then you also had older sisters. You also pursued degrees in computer science and mathematics from Southern University, which is an HBCU, and A&M College. So how has your family life and upbringing inspired you to focus your professional and personal endeavors as a problem solver, go to you to think like a computer, and have a love for coding and STEM-related learning?
Having parents that were both educators, a sister that was an educator, lots of family members that are educators, that was the path that I thought would be the best path for me as well. So initially, I went to college to major in math education so that I could return home and teach at our local community schools, similar to what all of my family members had done. And one of the things I learned pretty quickly was that I had to take a computer science course as part of the math curriculum. And I was able to identify a lot of the things that I was doing in that computer science class were things that I was doing on my MySpace page, understanding that all that fun work that I thought I was doing was actually doing HTML programming, which is one of the types of programming you can do as a computer scientist, right? So finding that out was really mind-blowing to me at the time. So I quickly changed my major over to computer science because I'm like, if this can be a job or a career path for me, I'd like to pursue it and see what that looks like. Definitely a turning point for me.
Now, were there particular family values or guiding principles that sort of made it possible for you to say, you know what, I can actually do this? And I ask this because you are a champion for increasing representation of women in STEM and specifically computer science. So I know what that might also be when you're not the only in terms of your gender, but then also specifically because you are a Black woman and navigating those spaces can be a challenge. So what are some of those family values and principles that got you through and encouraged you to keep on pursuing?
I would say just that mindset of being a hard worker all the time, even when nobody's looking. I would say my village, right? Literally my village, because I grew up in a very small town, 2,500 people. I think that kind of sometimes fall in like the village instead of town. but it's literally a community. And I would say just seeing hard workers around me every day, whether they were educators or any other field, it was just that intense, hardworking mindset that we have there and always looking out for one another. So even with me, I'm seeing with my children now because they're doing more than I've done. But it's also that your mom or your dad won't be there to help you with every little thing all of the time. All they can do is teach you how to work hard so that when you have a hard problem, you know to give up. That was very, very instrumental in my upbringing. And I could say that was equally as instrumental now as someone working in a field where it's like you're literally working with the brightest people in the world every single day. All I can do is show up and be my best every single day.
You were previously a rocket scientist. Now you're currently a software engineering program manager at Google. And so when I think about some of those kinds of experiences, and again, understanding that as a professional now, there isn't much representation for both women and then also of African descendants in coding, in rocket science, in math and engineering. What sort of advice or strategies would you recommend to girls and other young women interested in pursuing computer science and professional careers in these fields?
I'm hoping that by literally showing my face, that helps demystify a lot of things, right? Just showing who I am, right? I'm a Black woman and I'm into. Hopefully, girls can look at me and say, oh, yeah, this is something I can do just because I'm there. But then I want to also go a step further where I'm also demystifying what these things are. So I prefer to start way early in childhood or in girlhood, if you will, with children between the ages of 5 and 8 years old, which is that super inquisitive age where all kids, girls, boys, are all asking that question, why? They question everything. I have a 5-year-old right now, and it's literally everything you throw at him. It's like, why is that? Or they're very just inquisitive and just trying to figure things out. So, what I would hope to do is continue to build on that because that's a great problem solving skill set. That's a skill set that I use every day. We're solving problems that are super ambiguous. There is no solution for it, but they need a solution. So you try your best to figure out, based on all of your lived experiences, what is the best solution for that problem. So, what I'm trying to do is hopefully by building on that skill set of problem solving, specifically in Black girls, because there's an age group, I think it's right at the preteens, where young girls kind of start losing confidence because one, they're the peer pressures of friends thinking they're too smart or they're not smart enough. We're worried about the wrong things at that time period. So what I'm hoping by building and instilling that confidence at a younger age is that even whenever that time comes where the confidence is waning, their confidence in their problem solving skills or their critical thinking isn't one of those things that are impacted.
And I totally get that because, of course, I'm a mom of two, one's in college and one's in high school. I think about how the teenage years, it is developmentally appropriate where there's a heavy emphasis on social dynamics
Yep.
and peer perception. But, I also want to think about just, well, what are some of the messages that girls and children of color specifically are getting? There's a component where there's external messaging. Just the fact that you said that just by your existence and showing up in spaces to show I exist, people like me exist, so you can too. It counters an external message that perhaps they're also receiving that, am I not in these spaces? Do I not belong? So how do we combat that? Because it's coming from adults too, for young people when we're talking about that, or even our managers when we're in these professional spaces and we're navigating through.
Definitely the step that I've learned firsthand is just showing up. I would say a message to all people that are in tech because I know lots of them. Sometimes just going to your children's school and telling them about your career or going to your local library and reading someone else's book, like just showing your face and that it is possible. Sometimes it's the best messaging. Full transparency. Before I took this path, I was also one of those people. I don't consider myself a speaker or anything like that, but I do consider myself a techie, and just talking about my experiences sometimes is all the inspiration that these kids need, and sometimes even adults.
Be what you wanna see.
Act 2, The Road. All right, Tirsa. I know you enjoy fashion and have an eye for design. How else do you play?
Outside of being a techie, I enjoy like this creative side. So yes, fashion is definitely one of those things that I like to play with. Things with lots of color. Lately, I've been finding some great excitement in doing things like graphic design and other things with my brand and using colors, making different graphics and things like that. So I would say outside of fashion, just all the pretty things. That's what I'm enjoying.
So, you are the creator and best-selling children's author of the Terysa Solves It book series, which you created to support children and their families and to be able to reinforce healthy curiosity and problem-solving skills and encourage empathy. And it can't be missed by folks that the main character is a young brown girl interested in computers. Sounds familiar? You are also interested and actively involved in STEM educational programs that support Black and Brown children, and especially those in rural communities. Oftentimes, I think that when people think about race and gender and social inequities among groups that continue to be marginalized and disenfranchised, two cultural models get evoked. One, these kinds of communities are predominantly Black and Brown. Two, that they are only in urban epicenters. Speak to the significance of the digital divide and its impact to children, particularly children of color and those in rural communities, because honestly, I don't think that people really get it.
Going to visit schools in different areas and then visiting schools in my local area. It's night and day. One of the things that I see the most, you know how I talk about problem solving, critical thinking, things like that. I can see even a difference in the questions that are asked between children in other areas and even children that are older than that in this area. I went to Huntsville, Alabama earlier this year. And if you know anything about Huntsville, it's the Rocket City. This is where like NASA is, all the aerospace companies, like nerds' favorite place. It's just an amazing city. When I spoke to a group of second graders in a public school, the questions they were asking, I would say, would be equivalent to late middle schoolers, early high schoolers here.
Wow.
There isn't a STEM curriculum there. It's due to their exposure to these things. For me, going from my house to my school, all I see is fields of, grass or cows or things like that. You don't see those things. But for them going to school, you see NASA, you see Amazon, you see all these possibilities. If you don't see those things, you don't know about them. I would also say that too about people. That's why I say like just me showing up makes all the difference sometimes. If you don't see it, you don't know it exists. So what I'm trying to do through my Tears to Solves It book series, show them all these things that exist. Even though I grew up in a rural area, like many of the readers that I have, still dreamed big. My careers afforded me to see things that I probably wouldn't have seen had I not followed that career path. So it's just exposing them to the possibilities.
Tell us the origin story of Tirsa Solves It. Why is this work important to you and why now?
I've always wanted to write a children's book. I had a great childhood, so I wanted to, mix that in. I have small children, and one of the things that we do is we make up these stories where, like, I'll start something and then the next person will pick up a section, and we always fall into these silly stories. But I would say outside of that, one of the things that my children would always ask me, how were things in the 1900s? So long ago. And oh my goodness, you didn't have a cell phone, mom? What was that like? So that was kind of like the origin of that story. And they really just, okay, 1900s is a long time ago. My son was like, mom didn't even have a microwave whenever she was growing up. My daughter is like, of course she had a microwave. It just didn't have buttons. I one time told them the story of the very first time I'd ever seen a computer, because that's a 1900 story, I would assume. I told them about the first time seeing it, what it looked like, what I did with it. And they were so intrigued. Every now and then they're like, can you tell us that story again? Or we have little ones now too. It's like, can you tell them that story of the first time you saw the computer? I felt like it kind of turned into something with them. I also do a lot of STEM outreach and they also want to hear stories. And I'm like, if my kids enjoyed that story, maybe I tell them about the time of me first seeing a computer. And like everybody loves that story. So if you ever talk to kids, tell them about the first time you ever saw a computer. They'll love it. I just use that story as kind of a basis for my children's book. fictionalized a lot of it, but a lot of it really happened. So, for example, the very first time that I saw a computer, my mom was a middle school teacher. In her classroom computer, she could bring it home over the summer because it would kind of just be sitting in her classroom. And she literally put it on the kitchen table. And she told me and my sister to go ahead and figure out what you can do with it. We have it for the summer. And so I saw it there, and it's like, okay, this looks like it needs to plug into the wall. It's like a puzzle piece. This looks like it goes into the back of the monitor. And this is old computers where you plug up lots of different things. So being able to figure that out was, I feel, like part of my path.
Mm.
That's what a computer scientist does. Nobody gives you a manual and says, you need to do this, this, and that. Because if they did, then they wouldn't need me. They need somebody to go in there and figure it out. So me figuring out how to turn that computer on was mind blowing to me at the time, but it was very instrumental in my career. And then from there, seeing it turn on, and it's like, wow, the screen is so bright. And I'm typing these letters. How does the computer know the letters on this keyboard are supposed to go on the screen? Things like that is what really intrigued me and made me fall in love with computers. So there were like 2 discs, Carmen Sandiego, Oregon Trail, just figuring out how to play those games. And that was definitely a good lesson that summer. I think like really solidified my love for computers.
And I presume that Tears Solves It is another opportunity for you to not only share these kinds of stories with your children, but also with other people's children. With that being said, what does the future hold for Tears Solves It? Please share with our audience the new invention you have, the coding robot for kids.
Definitely in the future, I would like to dabble more into STEM education. I like to call it STEM education with play. So more toy-based STEM games or STEM-related things that teach kids how to code. Because one of the things I see more specifically in girls, of course, the toys would be for everyone, but one thing I'm seeing in girls is like, even when you say the term robot, it's like, oh my goodness, I'm not going to do that. I don't know anything about robots, but just making it more accessible to them. And it's like, okay, this is actually fun. And not realizing they're learning something similar to the path that I had growing up. One of the things I can say about the robot specifically is that with my children, my older two, I started them coding at 3 and 4 years old using computer programs like Scratch Junior, Scratch, and things like that. But I would say for my younger two that are in the same age range, them playing with the coding robot, they're learning without knowing that they're learning. I would say older two, they knew I was trying to teach them something. They were learning a skill. My younger two are like, I'm gonna have fun. Can I play with this coding robot and do these things? And I say the coding robot, kids as young as 3 years old can learn how to code because there's puzzle pieces where coding robot has an infrared sensor that reads the puzzle pieces. So if it tells it to go up, it'll follow that path. If it's incorrect, it'll give them some type of messaging to tell them maybe you should try again. But it's like all very kiddie, but also very fun and learning in the same time.
So I know that your work has extended globally to places in Gambia, for example. So when I think about the exposure of not just the books, but now the coding robot where it's learning and play combined, what has the experience been like to work with children and families outside of the US, but who also may face similar challenges when it comes to being African, in their case, in these non-white STEM fields? And what do you hope the legacy would be of the book series and the robot, not just in the US, but even in those global spaces?
Yeah, that's a great question because I've been able to get into a lot of global spaces with my book, which I feel is a good introduction. It's very foundational based computer science. I mentioned the foundational problem solving skill set, foundational critical thinking skill set. Even what I'm seeing with a lot of parents now and teachers as well, it's like my daughter or my son is very interested in this. How do I keep them engaged? And what are some actual skills that I can teach them if they're interested in it? And I would say, from a global perspective, I would like to continue that as well. And I think my book opened up a lot of doors to get in those spaces. And I'd like to, in the future, make it more accessible for them to actually learn the coding aspects as well, whether that's through a platform or whether that's through the educational toys.
Get involved.
Act 3 3, where we land. So, Terysa, because we have this month of December commemorating computer literacy and computer science education, I think it'd be really helpful if you were to share with the audience any upcoming events, where they can find your book series, where they can find the coding robot, where can they find you in the event that they want to invite you to their community spaces or their educational spaces, so that you can share your experiences and to really amplify and edify children who are interested in pursuing professional careers in STEM.
Coming up this month, I have a few holiday related events locally here in Lafayette, Louisiana, but I also offer storytime visits. So if you are a teacher or if you have a daycare center or even if you have a store, I do a lot of store events as well. I'd love to come and read to your audiences. I have on my website, terysasolvesit.com, there's a storytime link there where you can fill in your information and I'll reach back out to you to schedule some time to hopefully inspire your students and children.
Are you also on social media so that people can follow you as well?
Yes, I'm on social media, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and starting next year, I'll be on YouTube. And all social media, it's under Terysa Solves It, and that's spelled TerYsa Solves It, Solvesit.
Awesome. So, folks, there you have it. Terysa, thank you so much for joining us and sharing your journey of belonging to Blackness.
Thank you so much for having me.
The journey isn't over, but this episode is. To catch the latest, be sure to subscribe to the podcast and follow us on Instagram at JourneysB2B_podcast. Thanks for listening.